Welcome to Crypto Disrupted. I'm your host, Trent Lipinski, and I'm here with Wally from Qchain. He is the CEO and founder. Wally, can you introduce yourself and let us know what you're working on?
Hi, Trent. Thanks for having me. Again, my name is Wally, and right now I'm a co-founder and CEO of the Qchain project. I'm going to repeat this information later on, but our URL is at www.qchain.co, and then you can reach me following this session at wally@qchain.co. It's my email address. So to give a brief background leading up to a discussion about Qchain, I first came into contact with crypto in 2011 when I saw that some of my engineering friends in college had started mining, and with their commentary, I read Satoshi Nakamoto's first revolutionary white paper, and I just was really grabbed by that because it was this melange, this mix of multiple academic disciplines from math, cryptography, to economics, to political science, and just really intellectually stimulating. So I didn't jump into speculating at the time, investing in Bitcoin. Of course, like everybody else, I wish I did.
Yeah.
But after a period in keeping tabs on it in 2012, 2013, with that first wave of MT Gox driven speculation, I discovered a couple of Sunny Kang's projects, and Sunny Kang, I feel, is still one of the eminent developers in the blockchain scene, even though he's gone a bit more quiet. But one of the projects was called Primecoin, with the other being a still active project called Peercoin. But Primecoin really grabbed me because its consensus algorithm, its proof of work consensus algorithm, was an attempt at something useful that wasn't just a burning of electricity. In that Primecoin's consensus algorithm involved hunting for a particular kind of prime number, just looking for ever larger versions of this prime number. The thing is, at that time, I think already there was just a lot of energy and belief that blockchain could be more than just cryptocurrency. It could be used for any number of things. And with my science background, that was just something that very much appealed to me. This useful innovation. So having even after the first big crash, the MT Gox crash, I continued keeping up with things. And in 2015, then you had this kind of blockchain 3.0 wave. I guess we'll call Bitcoin blockchain 1.0. Litecoin, the initial set of alternate altcoins, blockchain 2.0, and then by blockchain 3.0, we have major development in proof of stake. And a couple years down the line, also became apparent to me that proof of work, unfortunately, in some ways, it's just hard to make proof of work super useful. So Primecoin had its decline. The various protein folding, other useful science coins also were not very practical. There's just easier ways of doing what the coins were supposed to do. But with the energy requirements, with people becoming more cognizant of global warming and climate change, you had these proof of stake ideas coming out. Kept tabs on that. At the time, I'd also entered a PhD program, and in late 2016, my cohort mates and my PhD and I, we've been having discussions about blockchain. We decided that we wanted to tackle a project. We felt that we had we would be able to contribute to this space as well. And with my digital marketing experience, because I'd worked in a digital marketing startup called Sprout Social from 2012 to 2013, we decided to make our startup digital marketing and advertising oriented. So I'll do a little brief describer what Qchain was pre-pivot, what we are now after pre-pivot, and then we can continue with the other questions. So the initially we looked at the display advertising space, and with the display advertising space, there's a lot of centralized control from Google, from Facebook, and we felt that the at a more surface level, this was this is a more, I think, lower hanging fruit idea,
Hmm.
and at that time, in that initial wave of ICOs, everybody was thinking about, all right, like I'm just going to take existing concept, boom, add decentralization. Here's an ICO, and at the beginning, we still weren't too far out from that. So initially, we were going to do an ad marketplace, an ad exchange, in which just publishers and advertisers in the traditional model would be able to transact with each other. So we of course were familiar with the basic attention token, BAT, at the time, which really seeks to upend the digital advertising, the digital content ecosystem. However, we knew that there would have to be a transitionary period, and that you'd always have to have advertisers spend on the internet, potentially with these more traditional display ads.
Hmm.
So as we started, we wrote our white paper, we did some more research, we started cursory development. This is the beginning of summer 2017. And after we did this for a little while, it became clear to us that traditional display advertising is actually very much a dinosaur. It's very much anemic. And while Google still makes a buttload of money on it, it
Billions.
billions, yeah, I
Yeah.
believe it's close to 80 billion this year.
But but
Mhm.
they own the market. I mean, there's no competition. It's like,
Right.
Google just completely dominates that space, and I think they're 80% plus of that entire market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Huge.
yeah.
Um, and the thing was, first off, a lot of people were like, I think really excited. They're like, oh my God, like Qchain's gonna attack Google. Qchain's gonna topple Google, which, always and for the team compels some caution, because, we knew that we were very much we were less than a David in this case, against
Yeah.
more than a Google Goliath. And we were not targeting the largest ICO, and we'd have to spend our money very, very effectively, in a very targeted fashion. And for something like tackling a whole ad exchange, a whole, all those ad acronyms as well, DSP, SSP, any if you trying to replicate that whole ecosystem in blockchain takes a lot of resources. And we weren't sure we wanted to necessarily get into display advertising, because eventually, I think, talking to the rest of the team, we all realized that we also were generally just annoyed by display advertising. And, in our generation, it's something we've learned to tune out. It's something that's a lot less effective. We use ad block.
I don't look at ads.
Yeah,
I block
exactly.
them. I
Exactly.
run ad blockers. I run JavaScript blockers. I use a VPN. Like,
Same.
I don't even have cable anymore
Same.
because I can't stand the advertising. So,
Right. And people on the team as well, we're saying, well, all of us run no script. We ourselves don't look at ads. And
mhm.
should we really be getting into this market? And at that point, also, a bunch of other guys had swarmed in to this as well, because I think this is like just a lower hanging fruit blockchain idea. Um, so after some discussion, by August, we decided to make a pivot towards focusing on branded content, sponsorships, influencer marketing, which we kind of classify under the umbrella of authentic marketing, just
Mhm.
more personally connected marketing, because the digital advertising is here to stay, but the way that people digest it is and including my case, is certainly changing. And we were compelled by, for example, the New York Times has actually a very good branded content section where advertisers pay for stories, but they tend to be very engaging stories that
Mhm.
have they're not entirely journalism, but you can still learn a thing or two from them. Like for Orange is the New Black, they ran a whole piece about women in prison, which was
Yep.
pretty fascinating. And then additionally, you look at this streamer generation. You look at these people who these people in
Twitch
their
and
teens, 20s. Yeah, Twitch,
yeah.
exactly. In Japan, Nico. China has its own platform. So globally, teenagers, adolescents, people in their 20s and 30s are watching people game, and a lot of these gamers, they have sponsorships. They name drop advertisers. They have personal relationships with their fans and these advertisers.
And
So
for some context, there are more people watching other people play video games right now than are watching any professional sport. So
yeah,
more people watch other people playing video games than the NFL, the World Cup. It is a serious multi-billion-dollar industry.
yeah, and even locally in Orange County, so UC Irvine now has a Division 1 team for
Mhm.
esports, and recently UCI's League of Legends team placed a #1 in the collegiate championship. There's stars on campus, so
Yeah.
this whole ecosystem is and where people get their advertising referrals from is just has completely shifted to this more, I get my information direct from some feed, and I trust this person's feed, and I trust what this person advertises.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, we thought we sought to create at that point this marketplace for authentic marketing, branded content, sponsorships, influencer marketing. So it's kind of
So
the intro.
So walk me through. So let's say I'm an influencer that's got X amount of followers on Twitch or one of these streaming services. How would I work with your platform and what you're creating?
So on our platform, you first you'd on our marketplace, of course, you'd first sign up for an account,
Mhm.
an advertiser or a content creator account, and kind of like eBay. After you log in, you're directed to you're directed to this marketplace where, unlike eBay, it is actually it's eventually our goal is to make it a fully two-way marketplace where content creators can create ad space and ad unit listings that
Mhm.
that advertisers can purchase from the content creators, and then advertisers can create requests that the content creators choose to fulfill. So for an influencer, they log in. If let's say they want to make a listing for an availability for a sponsored post on July 30th. So they make that listing, and they'd have after that listing would be populated with information such as a verification that the person actually owns that account, number of followers, metrics, and then a binary review system of what the person's previous transactions, whether
Right.
previous advertisers enjoyed working with that
So
person.
you're building some social proof into the network then.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Got it.
And afterwards, the advertiser, let's say Nike, let's say Nike wants to buy some that availability. Well, they would make that payment, and then afterwards, we also would like to build some collaborative tools within the marketplace that facilitate the collaboration between the advertiser, say Nike, and this example influencer.
So is
And
this happening in US dollars? Is this fiat or is this happening in crypto?
this would be happening in our token, and just think our law firm cautioned us to not refer to our token as crypto. Uh,
Yeah.
we'd start, so we'd have EQC, which is our Ethereum based token, XQC, which is our NEM based token, and I'll get into the details later of why we chose to work with multiple blockchains. But
Yeah. I thought that was interesting that you're working on both Ethereum and NEM.
yeah, so I guess I'll jump into that now actually, and we did that because at the outset, especially with how early the space was, and with the DAO hack, while predominantly development was happening on Ethereum, we
Mhm.
didn't want to put all of our eggs in one basket and be blockchain dependent. Rather, we wanted to be blockchain agnostic in case there was a systemic failure with one blockchain. So we've taken a RESTful API development philosophy, And even though we have Ethereum and NEM-based tokens, really, if there's something catastrophic, and let's say there was some other chain that emerged to the fray, well, as long as that blockchain had a suitable API, which I think any developer-friendly blockchain tech will have, we'll be able to develop on that as well. So early on, of course, we chose to work with Ethereum because that was the obvious, the high profile given with a great community and developer base. We looked through the other top blockchains in early 2017, and it just became clear to us that a lot of the other technologies, while there was a lot of hype behind them, were still just not developer friendly, and it was just impossible to actually build on them. It was possible to actually build on them, so that's another reason why we chose to work on them.
I'm just curious. Did you look at EOS at all yet?
We did look at EOS,
It
and
wasn't even testnet yet. Yeah, they just went mainnet like a month or so ago. So.
Yeah, and we looked at EOS. Last month.
Mhm.
The CTO Roy will have more to say on that, but there was just at the time we weren't ready to jump on. We weren't ready to jump on EOS, even though they were getting a lot of they were giving out a lot of funding to developers, just because there were still some security issues that that some of my devs and Roy took issue with. So we're playing a wait and see approach with EOS at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then your team. Tell us a little bit about your team. And I mean, it looks like you've got a pretty impressive team. There's a lot of you've got how'd you meet your team? How'd you guys come together? You've got a pretty impressive advisor pool as well.
Thank you. The team. So Roy and I, we're like the first two guys, and we're just cohort mates in our PhD program. Roy's been a buddy of mine the past 3 years, and just from the outset, there's a lot of debate and intellectual jousting between us. So when it came time to building a startup, I definitely wanted somebody like Roy on board. Trying to build a team that's filled with lively debate and just reasoning things out, and definitely didn't want to work with have a whole team of yes men. So after Roy and I got started, we then partnered with some other PhD students in our program who've just due to nature of building company, changing goals, changing ideals, they've since left. But another co-founder who jumped in early is Angela, and Angela, our chief content officer, I met in college actually. So we've been pretty good friends for a while. And Angela was also a great addition because she's very familiar with the New York media scene. And formerly, she worked for BuzzFeed. She worked for Gawker, so she has a lot of input on native advertising, on branded content. For the rest of the team, we were able to. So James came on to kind of help us with the more traditional VC aspect, to help us navigate the waters of the more traditional startup scene. And I laugh that I use the word traditional to describe the startup scene, because startups themselves, very much came to the forefront in after 04, 05. So they're still relatively recent. But so James is doing his MBA JD at Stanford, and he's really familiar with how things work in the Valley, how things work in San Francisco.
Yeah, it's a very different. It's funny you bring that up, because there really is a traditional startup scene that is venture capital backed, and you basically have to know people in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley and San Francisco, and there's this very kind of niche community. And then now you've got the crypto scene, which is just like totally the Wild West.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just completely different, because now you can launch projects outside the United States. I mean, most people are, because they don't know what the regulations are going to look like yet. A lot of people are doing ICOs. They can now raise from non-accredited investors. So it's a completely different startup ecosystem than your more traditional startup ecosystem. But if we
Right.
were talking like 3 or 4 years ago, that traditional startup ecosystem was the startup ecosystem. This crypto ecosystem didn't exist yet.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so yeah, we're at a new. This is a new paradigm that we're all experiencing right now.
Right. And the thing that we've learned the hard way is that while a lot of things are different, a lot of things also do stay the same. For example, the actual part of building a company, there's only
Hmm.
so many things you can do the right way, and there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. But in terms of, for example, back to building the team, for a while we hired a lot of people based on enthusiasm, based on their enthusiasm, their desire to get into crypto, and in some cases that turned out to be pretty bad. That didn't exactly turn out to be the right fit, and also just the same thing of the management, delegation of duties, internal company operations. We found that blockchain and cryptocurrency have not really been able to change that. A lot of that is still the same.
It's still centralized, and you still need to use project management solutions. You still
Exactly.
need to, and
Trello, etc.
even yeah, and even when you're building I mean, in most use cases right now, you're building hybrid applications.
Yeah,
Is the frameworks to just build a completely 100% decentralized application? It's not there.
yeah, exactly.
So as you were saying, you're looking at multiple blockchains, and you were just trying to find a blockchain that actually had, APIs that you could
Yeah,
actually start developing on now.
yeah,
And there really aren't that many. Um,
exactly.
so it's in the roadmap for some of them, and they're hoping to get to mainnet, and they're hoping to provide these solutions. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of limitations still. So
Yeah,
you can centralize parts of your app, and you can have 20, 30, 40, maybe 60 or even 70% of it decentralized, but
yeah.
the other 30+% is probably going to be centralized somehow.
Yeah, and I think just with human nature being what it is, I think pure decentralization is just also it's a very, I think, tough thing still for humans
Yeah.
to reckon with. So in our case as well, just for EQC and XQC, and keeping with the whole utility token requirement of the US, even as the US is evolving. In terms of its blockchain and crypto related legislation, one of the things we're looking at is having a form of eventually building a form of staking for EQC and XQC token holders. So not just simply used for transactions between advertisers and content creators, but we want to have an incentive for having people host backups for backup nodes for our marketplace globally. That way, further helping to ensure uptime and reduce downtime of the marketplace. So that's one thing we're looking at to up the decentralization factor of the and to add more usefulness for the token in our product.
One of the main benefits for decentralization is to offset your overhead.
Right.
Um,
Sure.
is so so you're not paying a multi-million-dollar AWS bill at the end of the month.
Yeah.
You've got consensus. You have other players. You've got nodes running on your network. You've got other people processing transactions. So you get that kind of like community engagement that you wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily have.
Yeah, and I think behind the hype of blockchain, that's one benefit that I think should be definitely articulated more often. The
Mhm.
fact that blockchains actually can save money, in terms of a pure profit driven perspective, and then additionally, blockchains also make building backends and scaling up backends a lot easier. So in our case, we don't have to go through all the effort of building a really ugly database in SQL of tinkering there. A lot of the framework for just the database is already comes with building on blockchains.
Yep. And now you just work towards what the blockchain is capable of,
Right.
and then build what you need to, rather than having to reinvent the wheel.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I think
So
those are things that are just the cool things you just learn about when you start doing more, when you do more dev, when you start, getting into the nitty gritty of the development aspect, and you realize, oh, like this stuff is actually very, very useful.
So where are you at right now in terms of the business itself? Are you fundraising? Are you doing an ICO? Have you done an ICO? What's
Did do an ICO in last November. That went from last November to December, and we were able to get enough. We got shy of $1 million for the our initial fundraising. So that's been enough to get the team going, and we're looking to release our pre MVP with the full GUI by the end of this month, and
okay, cool.
we're looking to have the so we in the background. So behind the scenes, we already have the testnet functionality going, but in August or September, we're looking to launch the fully fledged functional MVP, the minimum viable product. We haven't been able to focus on sales and building the sales pipeline as much. Being brutally frank, that's one of the things that doesn't get me that excited. Just like
Yeah.
sales, it's important, and there's people who are very good at it. But personally, I enjoy thinking about the tech, thinking about the company vision a lot more. But that would then be another important step after we have the MVP released. Just
Yeah.
getting the market going, and we're looking to. I think there's a niche to be targeted in terms of mid-sized, smaller time bloggers that
Mhm.
right now, it's one of the value propositions of our marketplace is that it makes life easier for these guys because they don't have to do cold outreach to potential sponsors, to people. They can post themselves on this marketplace for people to come find them. Likewise, life also becomes easier for advertisers who don't need to rely on account executives to scope out these opportunities. So
Mhm.
we are streamlining the sales process there. But for people like travel blogging, food blogging is a huge thing these days, and we really want to target that sector of
Yeah.
uh, of people for our market.
There's definitely a need there. So I ran a Apple News and Rumor site when I was back in high school. This was
Mm,
like 10, 15 years ago.
yeah.
I did that for a while. I ran a tech column on Suicide Girls. I did some stuff with Gawker and Valleywag. This
Oh,
was
cool.
this was a while back, and then I've got a fairly large Medium account following, so I get offers to be bribed all the time
Yeah.
to publish things. So there's definitely a demand for this kind of for this kind of for this kind of solution.
Yeah.
However, I don't, when people are cold emailing me saying, hey, we want you to publish this, like, I don't know who they are. So
Exactly.
having a marketplace with a social proof system, knowing that, hey, this is a legitimate project, these people, they're hiring other people, they've worked with other people in the past, and they have they have a actual project on their hands. I
Yeah.
mean, my criteria has been when I get these cold emails, most of the time I've just been ignoring them, to be honest. But
Yeah.
my criteria has been if your CEO or one of your co-founders is willing to schedule a meeting with me and explain the project to me, and it's something that interests me, I'll potentially write about it.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I don't think I've ever gotten a meeting from doing that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because so for me, I want to vet them because I want to talk to them. I want to actually have that. I want to have a conversation. If I can't have a simple conversation with them about their product, I'm not going to write about it.
Right.
So there's definitely some push and pull there in terms of, a lot of these are PR services and that kind of thing. And
Right.
they don't even necessarily have access to the people that they're working for.
Right.
So, but at the same time, I definitely see the need because, like Medium, for example, they rolled out their monetization strategy where people pay subscriptions, and then if you publish to their subscription audience, you can get a cut of revenue. But it's like, I I published some high value content. I made like 15 bucks. Like,
Right. It's like the Spotify problem. I think.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. It's exactly the Spotify problem. So it's like, so if there were alternative solutions where I could just work with one or two sponsors and know that, hey, these couple sponsors are supporting my YouTube channel or supporting my, my Medium account or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just know, and I can set an amount or, we can agree upon a rate or whatever. And
Yeah.
then, I just have sponsored content now. That would be an interesting opportunity and probably
Yeah.
a better business model than writing for Medium currently. Like
Right.
right now, I just don't monetize it. I do it for
Right. Right. It's at this point, part of the like Spotify too, right? In a lot of cases, the artist has their content on there. It's the lead gen for their tours, for their shows and merch. Um, and it's the amount they get from royalty checks definitely impossible
very
to
small.
move on.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, we've reached this interesting point right now where uh, you know there's definitely an opportunity here because creating good content as a content creator, like the amount of content that's out there now in terms of people that are creating good content is the market is huge,
right,
but there's not a vehicle to connect them properly to advertisers.
right,
So I definitely see kind of the potential of where you're coming at from this because I've experienced it myself.
yeah, and also I think there's a lot of interesting possibilities I think that can come from just machine learning and all of this as well. And
Mhm.
what I mean is that with all these content creators and content publishers, they're it gets pretty overwhelming. For example, just when you get that slam of all those cold emails, you don't know the website, you don't know the content creator. So our chief scientist Linga, whose specialty is in machine learning and statistical learning. He's working on an algorithm that we hope to deploy and test on the marketplace, which involves automatically chunking new content creators into certain categories, such as, for example, mid-sized travel blogger or high-profile influencer, based on based on a quick machine glance at their content. And I think it's similar to what Netflix does with sorting their viewers into one of the 300 to 400 different categories
Got it.
or whatnot. Because I think especially with the emergence of blockchain, with this current digital era, there's just more and more data being generated as well. It's really overwhelming our human capabilities, and we need help sorting through all of that.
And being able to match the right sponsorship and advertising opportunities to the right influencers and to be able to have some kind of system or algorithm to do that based off of the data you're collecting,
Right.
that would make the process a lot easier.
Right.
Because now you log in and there's a recommendation of who to work with rather than having to go sit down and search and seek.
Right. Right.
So unfortunately, we're getting close to needing to wrap up here. But do you have any final thoughts? Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up?
Well, again, yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on. This was a really pleasant conversation. I think no final tidbits. I just wish everybody else who's currently building a company in this space the best of luck and just continued energy and motivation for all of us as we proceed forward in this brave new world.
And where can people find you again?
Oh yes, they can go to our website at www.qchain.co, and they can find our pitch deck on there, which summarizes our business plan and goals. And I can personally be reached at Wally at qchain.co.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. This has been fascinating, and I wish you the best of luck on your project.
Thank you very much, Trent. I hope you have a good day.
All right, take care.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.